With this cold weather, coffee gets cold quick. It's still kind of warm, but anyway, how exciting. Chapter 28. A ship. This is why I like Star Trek. This chapter. This is it. This is an episode of Star Trek right here. You know, that's why I joked about that Master and Commander movie. They say that's the greatest, latest Star Trek movie. That's how much most people don't like Kurtzman Star Trek. He's the weirdo that's taken over Star Trek. So some movie about Russell Crowe, you know, years and years and years ago, you know, like, I'm Russell Crowe, and I'm going to get this ship through the seas for England. I haven't even seen it, but I guess it's good. I guess it's like an episode of Star Trek. That's what I've heard. So that's what I think of here. Is this is like an episode of Star Trek? They're getting on the ship, and then they come to multiple planets here, and they meet all kinds of weird aliens. Usually in Star Trek, you know, the red shirt gets killed. But the nice thing about this whole chapter is verse 37. And we were in all in the ship 260 souls. You know, I think that's about the complement of the original series. I don't know. I don't remember how many people are on the original Enterprise. The original Enterprise is pretty small. The Next Generation one is like, there's like 1,000 people on there or something. So this is 200, 3 that's 60, right? And 16, so 276 people. That's pretty amazing. When you think about it, and when you watch movies about like shipwrecks and, you know, pirate battles and stuff, you think about all the parameters on a ship, like one single rope with a hook on it can just get snapped from wind and then just fly and kill like 3 people, you know. But 276 made it through this entire voyage without getting killed. Not a single red shirt dead. Isn't that incredible? I just think that's amazing. It's another indicator of God being with Paul and protecting him on this voyage, and all the people were blessed by God because Paul was required to be at Rome. That's what the angel says to him, right? In verse 23. For there stood by me this night the angel of God. The angel of God. Zechariah 12:8. Whose I am and whom I serve, saying, Fear not, Paul. Thou must be brought before Caesar, and lo, God hath given thee all them that sail with thee. Wherefore, sirs, be of good cheer, for I believe God, that he shall be even as it was told me. Howbeit, we must be cast upon a certain island. So they had to go through this scenario. I wonder if part of Homer is based on this. A lot of historians like to say that Homer was before the Bible, written before, but I mean, where this is taking place with Crete and everything, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this is maybe Homer copied off of some of this. I don't know, just a thought. The Iliad and the Odyssey with Odysseus shooting an arrow through 13 axes or something. Whatever. All right. So the first note is on verse 17. Undergirding is running ropes or chains under the boat by putting them over the bow and letting them go back unto the ship, and then fastening them across the deck of the ship so the hull does not crack. Wow, isn't that amazing? They're teaching us stuff. He's teaching us stuff about this. Let's read the verse on verse 17. Which when they had taken up, they used helps, undergirding the ship, and fearing lest they should fall into the quicksand, strake sail, and so were driven. When I read this, I was like, if I was reading this to a person that doesn't want to use their brain, this section might be confusing. I always use my imagination as I read this. I know the language is a little challenging here, but I've seen like every movie ever made. Parents just wanted to plop me in front of a TV, so I've watched a lot of movies. That's instead of getting some exercise, which is what I should have done back then. So anyway, I use my imagination and I think of some movie with some big voyage and some British guy like, move that rope! Catch the mainsail! Hard to port! That's what I imagine in this scene. So I know it sounds confusing, but I'm thinking of it in that way. This is what's going on. You got a bunch of fat British guys yelling at each other about different naval terms that I don't even understand. Port to hard to starboard to cast the mainsail. Watch the rope! I don't know. So anyway, let's learn something here. Undergirding is running ropes or chains under the boat by putting them over the bow and letting them go under the ship, and then fastening them across the deck of the ship so the hull does not crack. Isn't that amazing? So in Star Trek, you have Star Trek Voyager. Same concept, although in space instead of in water. Janeway would be like, polarize the hull. Or wait, no. That would be Archer. Archer in Star Trek Enterprise would say that. Polarize the hull. I'm an idiot, but polarize it. Because that's all they could do. They couldn't do much in Star Trek Enterprise. They could just polarize the hull, and then some alien would come at them, and then the British guy would be like, Captain, there's an alien shooting at us. What do we do? And all they could do at the start of Enterprise was polarize the hull. That'll fix them. Because they didn't even have like guns or anything. They had like one torpedo tube, and it was pathetic. That was the first Enterprise. It was still a good show, but you need some guns to deal with scumbags. I know everybody wants to be all scientific and just think that there's no danger in the world, but even Jesus tells you to take a sword. I think you need to take some disruptor cannons and some, torpedoes and good stuff. Anyway, back to what we were talking about, 27:30. And as the shipmen were about to flee out of the ship, when they had let down the boat into the sea, under color as though they would have cast anchors out of the foreship, here's the note. This is a crew deciding to desert secretly. They put up a flag to signal they are just going out to bring up the anchors. If they put up an honest flag, they would have put up a signal flag that signaled abandoned ship. Well, think about the situation. 276 guys. All British type guys. No, they're going to be speaking like Arabian. And what do we do? The rain! The water! They'll probably be like that. They won't be talking British, but I immediately think of a British sounding voice. So 276 guys struggling to keep the boat afloat. They're probably taking the buckets, going, "Oh my God, we are going to die!" And it's intense, and it's just, but nobody died, But it was a struggle, and all 276 made it. But you have 10 half-breed type people, who are like at the back of the boat, and they're like, "If I were the captain of this boat, I wouldn't let us go that way to the east. We should be going west. We could hide out in the pirate cove." You got 10 guys spreading this rumor about like the pirate paradise over there south of Crete. If we turn the ship around in the storm, we could, kind of coast in there. But the captain, he's trying to get us over here. I know I'm reading too much into it, but this is the kind of situation they're dealing with. You have revolutionaries in the back of the boat, and then you have the people that want to get the boat safely to its destination, and it's a struggle. And amidst all of it, Paul is saying, "Praise God, we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it." All right, I'm done.